Hey everybody, Mike Iaconelli here. Welcome to a brand new In the Shop. We've got a good one for you today. In today's shop video, I'm going to be giving you my top 4 baits for the month of October. Top 4 baits for the month of October. Okay, let's start with talking about October. October is fall. The leaves are falling. It's Halloween. There's pumpkins everywhere. But October is classic fall fishing, depending on what part of the country you live in, okay? In these videos, we're going to break it down for you. If you live from Virginia, make a straight line across the country north, we're going to give you some ideas for that. If you live below Virginia, the Carolinas, all the way to Texas, Louisiana, down south, California, Southern Cal, we got tips for you as well. But October's fall, okay? It is truly fall. I can tell you that in the top part of the country, it is the beginning of true fall. Our water temperatures really starting to nosedive. Air temperatures really starting to nosedive. You begin to see the leaves are falling off the trees, right? All classic signs of fall fishing. So the top half of the country, you're well underway into the fall patterns. If you live down south, that fall transition is happening a little slower, but for sure by October, you're seeing the signs of those fall patterns kicking in, okay? And so as I give you these 4 baits, keep in mind that this is fall fishing. Up north, for sure, down south, beginnings of it. And there's one key thing that happens in the fall that you really have to pay attention to. And it is bait. It is bait. Not necessarily the other kinds of bait. It's not that they stop eating crawfish and bluegill and all that. They don't stop eating that. But in the fall, guys, bait becomes critical. Shad, herring, alewife, cisco, shiners, minnows. That bait forage becomes key. And as that bait starts to move in the fall, and it's beginning to move shallow again, those bass are going to follow that bait and they're going to feed heavy. So let's go over my top 4 baits for October, and they're all connected to fall bait style fishing, okay? Let's start. My first 2 are going to be for the guys up north. And this is a October classic for me, guys. Every fall, like clockwork, this bait becomes a superstar for me. And it is a bait that is very much bait oriented. And it is a soft plastic fluke minnow style bait, fluke style bait. Guys, there's lots of them out there. I prefer the ones that are 3 to 5 inches. For sure, this is my favorite. This is the Power Jerk Shad 5-inch bait. I love this thing because a fluke is probably one of the best soft plastic bait imitators out there. The action is erratic. The size profile, the tail profile, everything about it screams baitfish. And you heard me say it. October, fall is all about baitfish. Now, couple rigging tips real quick on that fluke. I'm going to primarily fish it 2 different ways, depending on the level of the fish, where they're at in that water column, the level and the depth of the fish. So Typically in October up north, fish are already starting to push shallower. And when fish are shallower in October and more toward the surface, if you're seeing schooling fish or stuff like that, they're already making their way into the pockets, the creeks. They're already creeping on top of the shoals, right? So if this particular October is a little cooler, they're getting shallower. A weightless fluke is perfect. And guys, literally, I just expose it on a, depending on your fluke style bait. You know, again, this one is the Power Jerk Shad, it's 5-inch, but generally a 4-aught or 5-aught EWG style hook is what I like for that fluke, okay? And I expose it. So normal Texas rig, I'll show you real quick, guys, just for the guys that want to see it. I'm going in the nose of that fluke, about 1/8 of an inch. I'm popping out. I'm bringing it all the way around the shank of that hook. And then when I bury that hook in the body, I like to push it out a little. So that hook is kind of just riding in the little vein that's on that Power Jerk Shad. Great hookup percentage, still stays weedless, okay? So weightless when the fish are shallower, when the fish are higher. But guys, don't sleep on fishing that same exact fluke. Like literally, you don't even have to change it. You grab the same fluke, and if the fish are deeper, if your October is a little more mild, and if those fish and the bait hasn't really pushed super shallow yet, or they're down deep a little, I see sometimes on lakes, it's October, but it hasn't gotten cold yet, but they're still wanting to hunt bait in October, okay? So I take that same Power Jerk Shad, guys, I just ring it on a jig-head, okay? I just ring it on a jig-head. This is a Berkeley Fusion jig-head. I like the jig-heads with a little longer hook, okay? This isn't a little petite minnow. This is a 5-inch, even a 4-inch minnow. So I want a jig-head with a little bit bigger hook. 2-aught, 3-aught, 4-aught. I really like the 3-aught Fusion hooks. The other thing I want you to have on this jig head is, let me see if I can show you, 90-degree line tie. That line tie goes straight up and down. I want it to be a 90 because that's going to keep this bait horizontal. It's going to give it a little bit better roll and flash too, okay? And when they're deep in October, you know, let's say 15, 10, 15 feet or deeper, I just thread that thing through the same bait. And there's that minnow now on a jig head. Fish it the same way, twitch it, shake it, make it roll. Same thing I'm doing weightless, but now it's able to get to those fish that are deeper. So my number one bait for October, dude, without a doubt, looking at my notes, looking back the last 20 years, is a fluke. Real quick before I get to bait number 2, keep the colors simple, guys. Remember, fall fishing is about bait. So whites, pearls, silvers, purples, blues, stuff like that. Bait fish colors for a bait fish imitator. All right, let's go on. My number 2 bait for the month of October, especially we're talking about the top half of the country. Draw a straight line from Virginia across top half of the country. It is, no shock here, guys, October fishing. Crankbaits. Crankbaits. Guys, talk about a bait fish imitator. A bait, a lure that imitates forage, like shad, minnows, stuff like that. Threadfin, little gizzard, young of the year gizzards. Dude, is there a better bait than a crankbait? I don't think so. But here's my deal in October. I really want to flush this out with you real quick. See if I can find a regular size crankbait. Here's one that my daughter jeweled out for me. But, you know, look at this. This is a regular, this is a dime 15. Regular full-bodied size crankbait. But in October, guys, one of the magic deals for me with a crankbait is I go small on the body size, okay? I like the crankbaits that don't have those big bodies, but they're smaller. There's two great examples right there. This is a Berkeley Square Bull 3.5. Still goes 4 or 5 feet, but it's only 2 inches. And here's another great example of a smaller bodied crankbait. This is the Money Badger 4. And you notice that has the deeper bill on it. Dude, this thing goes like 8 feet, 8 to 10 feet, but little body. All right, let me explain this. We're in October. Think about all that bait forage that I was talking about. That is young of the year bait forage. So threadfin, alewife, herring, gizzards, whatever your prevalent forage is, shiners, minnows, fatheads. And they had a spawn back in April, May, June, even into July sometimes, but April, May, all that forage spawned. So by October, it's about that big. And there's tons of it. And it's that big. It's smaller. And in October, those bass are hunting those young of the year baitfish species. And they really, really go crazy for smaller bodied crankbaits. Back in the day, there weren't a lot of them, and you used to see guys throwing crappie crankbaits a lot. Old Bill Norman crappie crankbaits. But now, a lot of choices in these smaller bodied crankbaits. And they simply get more bites. You know, it's not that you can't catch them still on the full size body, but you definitely get more bites. So throwing a smaller body crankbait around areas that have a lot of forage. Colder October, look for them in creeks, pockets, on tops of the shoals. Warmer October, out in front of those places. But throwing bait-colored, smaller bodied crankbaits is my number 2 way to catch them in the month of October, especially up north. All right, let's keep going. October is fall, no matter where you live. And now we're going to talk about down south. And down south, you know, the Carolinas down, draw a straight line across the country. It's fall, but it's happening a little slower. But my 2 bait choices are still going to be great representatives of bait forage, right? October, they're hunting bait. It's fall. Here we go. Number 3, guys, should be no shock. And when I look back in my notes, the fluke is number 1 in October. But in my notes, the number 2 bait in my life, 30 plus years, 40 plus years, is the good old spinnerbait, guys. The good old spinnerbait. Love, 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 love a spinnerbait in the month of October. Real quick breakdown on what kind of spinnerbait. You heard me just say it when I was talking about those smaller bodied crankbaits. Now, I prefer a more compact, smaller size spinnerbait. I'm not talking about size in the weight, but size in the frame of the bait. Okay, so a lot of companies out there with more compact sized spinnerbaits, but this is my favorite. This is a Mullex water slash. So happy to have this bait back out now. And it is a small, compact spinnerbait. 3/8 and 1/2 ounce. Honestly, guys, do most of the work for me. Those two sizes, depending on depth and wind and stuff like that. Color, you can see it right here, guys. October is fall. Fall means bait. Bait means bait fish colors. So your silvers, whites, pearls with silver blades. If your bait fish is silver, we want silver. Another sleeper for me is those pearls and whites with pure white blades. Guys, if you're watching this down south and you live in a place that has a ton of shad in it, and we're talking about those young of the year shad, dude, they're white. They're white. Whitey white. What? Perfect time for a white blade. And these are generally smaller blades on these more compact spinnerbaits. These are basically size 3 to 4.5 willows, but a lot of them have, as a lead blade, have those number 4s on them, which I like a lot. Last but not least, talk about the blades. I would say about 75% of the time in the month of October, fishing a compact bait-colored spinnerbait, I prefer willow blades about 75% of the time. I like it because it's a mix of flash and vibration. But I like it because, dude, look at the blades. They're the length and the silhouette. They look like little bait fish. So I prefer willow style blades. I really like the double willows, sometimes the tandem. Now, the other 25% of the time, see if I have one laying here. I don't think I do. Guys, you can use Colorado blades, and I'll do that in October if your water gets real dirty. If it's heavily stained and muddy, I switch from willows to Colorados, but everything else remains the same. Okay? Number 3, top bait in October, 100%, not even a doubt, is a spinnerbait. Okay? All right, last but not least, and this one in particular, down south in the month of October, has been a great bait for me. This last one, too, I do want to mention that is so good when you get around really heavy cover. And a lot of times in October, what you see is as this fall bait movement starts to happen, and as the bait starts to get out of the river channel and the main lake and starts to get shallower again, they suck up into heavy cover. Grass, for sure. Like lakes in Florida, you see it. Louisiana, Texas. That grass, all of a sudden gets alive with bait fish. You see it on Gunnersville, on Seminole. So, because of that, you need a lure that can get through it. Also, lakes where they have hard cover, standing timber, trees, brush. You see the bait get into the cover. And my number 4 top bait for the month of October, another bait fish imitator, guys, is the swim jig. The magic swim jig. Here's the great thing about the swim jig, guys. I think a lot of people assume a swim jig is only good spring to post spawn. That is false. A swim jig also gets really, 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 really good in the fall and in the month of October. But once again, guys, sound like a broken freaking record here. I don't want a big swim jig. I want a small swim jig. I want a more compact swim jig. And this is a great little swim jig by Missile called a mini swim. And if you look at it, looks like your typical swim jig, except everything's a little smaller, more compact, right? You heard me say it with the little crankbaits. You heard me say it with the little spinner baits, but in October, there's tons of small bait fish in the water, young of the year bait forage. And because of that, I like this smaller, more compact swim jig. Sizes, guys, 1/4 to 1/2, but that 5/16 or the 3/8 swim jig size is a great one. Colors, there it goes again. Guys, you know they're eating bait in the fall. So throw bait colors. I tend to put away the green pumpkins and the black and blues. I tend to put them away as they get a little bit away from bluegill and crawfish. And I want my whites, my pearls, bone. Bone is a sleeper color, okay? So a swim jig. And remember, hard to get a crankbait through grass. Hard to get a jig-head minnow through grass. But a swim jig, dude, I can pop that through it. I could throw it in holes and lanes. I could get it on the edge and swim it. And perfect bait fish imitator. All right. So size, color, we talked about. Trailer, I do want to give you a little juice on this before we sign off. And basically, I have 2 types of trailers I use on this swim jig, on a white swim jig in the fall, depending on what I want to do with that swim jig. And it's real easy, guys. This is a real easy method that works on your swim jigs. And one is, if I want that mini swim, if I want that swim jig to stay high, if I want that swim jig to have lift, I put on a crawl, okay? This has become a favorite of mine. This is a new one. It's a crud crawl by Maxent, Berkeley Maxent. I love this color. It's got basically white, got a little green pumpkin on top, but it's basically white. And when I'm threading it on there, I bite it down. But when I bite it down, you have 2 kicker legs on the back, okay? So I use crawls with arms, crawl arms on a swim jig. When I want lift, that's actually going to have amazing, movement in the water, and it's going to help keep that swim bait high. So if I'm shallow, if I'm over grass, if I'm high in the water column, they're suspended in trees, and I want lift, I use a crawl. But if I want that swim jig, compact swim jig in the month of October to get deeper, okay? So now think slow rolling it on deep edges of grass, slow rolling it off a secondary point, fish that are starting to move back into a creek. Now you want to get that swim jig, 3/8, ½ ounce, whatever it is. You want to get it deeper. I put on a swim bait, boot tail swim bait, whatever your favorite one is. This is the Power Swimmer. I'll pull one out here to show you, but just a very typical boot tail, whatever your favorite boot tail is. And that boot tail still has action. It actually makes this missile mini swim roll a little, gives it a little like shake because of that tail movement. But it has nowhere near the lift of those big arms. So when I put that on there, it allows that swim jig to get lower. I'm not fighting it to keep it down. It's going down, right? Crawl has lift. Boot tail has the ability to get down, okay? And last but not least, on colors of these trailers, whatever you select, I'm using bait fish colors as well. So I'm trying to keep that thing looking like a minnow, a shad, an alewife, a herring, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to make it look like bait, okay? All right, guys, bait number 4, top 4 month of October, compact swim jig. I hope you like these videos, guys. This one was talking about top 4 baits for the month of October. It's fall. The fishing is about to get great. I know a lot of you guys are hunting. Go fishing still. It gets really, really good in the month of October. Give those 4 a try. I think you're going to catch some more fish. Guys, if you like these videos, you like what you're hearing, boop, 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 hit the subscribe button, subscribe to the channel. If you're already subscribed, tell your friends, tell your draw partner, tell your fishing friends about Mike Iaconelli Fishing on YouTube. We're here to hopefully help you learn a couple things and ultimately catch more bass. See you later. Bye.